It's nearly July 1st, and Manchester United only have one player in the door. We got a lot of work to do, and they must quicken things up in the front office. Bryan Mbeumo, second bid in, rejected. We're also working on getting players out the door. We got the PSR new fiscal window beginning in just a couple days, but the lack of urgency, or maybe the delayed urgency that we're seeing from the front office of Manchester United is concerning. Other clubs, our former rivals, Liverpool bringing in 4 or 5 players already. Same with City. United got work to do, sir, and especially if you're doing onesie, one at a time, and it takes you a month to sign Bryan Mbeumo. I don't love it. How are we doing?
Look, United clutching their pearls for whatever reason here and not just letting it go and signing a bunch of players in the transfer window. And us fans, like week after week, we're like, surely there's going to be a medical with Mbuemo. And nope, nothing. Brentford actually rejected the bid. Why are we in this dance? Our last bid was in early June, I want to say for £45 million. Now we're stepping up to 55 plus the 7.5. And Brentford being coy. They want Cunha money, which was 62.5. Is he better than Cunha? That's what Brentford supposedly think. That's per the Daily Mail. So lots of drama, and the fact that United keep dragging their feet on this transfer deal or aren't getting there with Brentford, despite the player only wanting Manchester United, feels like this should be an easy one to get over the line, and we're making a meal of it.
I feel the same way. This is not a competitive deal. There are not other clubs really in for it. I know there's some noise about Spurs, but at the end of the day, the player's made it very, very clear since the beginning of June which club he wants to join. He wants to join the Red of Manchester. So the fact that we're dragging this out now, on week 4, is not good enough because the other clubs, maybe it's just the way United are covered in the media, but Chelsea, they go after a player, they get him signed in a couple days. They have an offer price. Let's meet the offer price because there's also the wasted time of us just spending weeks and weeks on a player who wants to join United. So it makes me worried if we were ever in a competitive deal where there's multiple buyers. I can't imagine United being in a position where they would gazump someone else. So he's a very promising player. Value argued versus Cunha. He has more goals, but he's got penalties. I really like the player, but I'm also just sick of us wasting time because, hey, those sales have not moved. We got a lot of buys. We got a lot of priorities, but let's just on to the next one. Let's come on. Move it faster. Must be more urgency. There's not nearly enough. We almost have a month of the window already closed, and preseason is right around the corner.
I think the sense of urgency comes from finishing 15th in the Premier League, being the butt of every joke with all of our friends. And the summer has been relaxing. Cunha, really rate the player. I think we have a great signing in Cunha, so it shouldn't be understated that we did come out of the gates and we did get a good player. Really happy about that, but how many days since we last signed a number 9. I mean, it's been a long, long time, and we only had one, and he really didn't score that many goals. Rashford could be considered a 9, didn't want to play there, and then we kicked him out the door, sir, and will most likely be selling him. So the fact that striker is languishing, I haven't heard any rumors. Gyorkeres to Arsenal. Arsenal's in the Šeško Gyorkeres race. United are nowhere to be seen on Osimhen. That gives me more concern. Mbuemo, okay, we can hem and haw over that. We'll most likely get the deal done. But when it comes to getting a number 9, where are the rumors? Who are we linked to? It was Delap hard out of the gate with a £30 million buyout clause. He went to Chelsea, unfortunately. So who else is it? Who's up? What's the plan B? What's the plan C? What's the plan D? Why aren't we making that a priority? Striker's almost more important than the Mbuemo deal. We're not seeing nothing from Manchester United on the striker front and other critical positions as well. I feel like the transfer news for Manchester United usually is just like everywhere, and it's pretty much crickets on the wire for United.
It's definitely crickets in the deals plus 1, right? And Mbuemo feels like he's coming. It feels like it's just like late haggling. I feel like Brentford, they know United, a bunch of chumps. I think they're going to end up paying their initial price a month later, and that's what it takes. That's what it takes. It's just that there's no real concrete advancement into the next player. And I think a lot of that is that musical chairs that's happening with a couple top tier clubs looking for their number 9. I think mainly Arsenal. Who are they going to pick? Do they go for Šeško? Do they go for Gyorkeres? And then we get the leftovers. And then we get the leftovers, which I'm okay with. I'll take either of those players because Rasmus Højlund cannot be our starting number 9 next year. But the fact that we went Cunha and Mbuemo, I think he's obviously thinking goals. But at the end of the day, we still need an out-and-out number 9 because we only have one, and he ain't good enough to start. So Mbuemo would be great. You have 2 of the 3 figured out for your front 3, but you still need the centerpiece, the number 9. I want Osimhen. Doesn't think we're gonna have the money for Osimhen. And I guess maybe the lack of
links.
Development.
There's no smoke. There's not you need smoke on the outgoings. We need some idea of a deal for Rashford, an idea of a deal for Garnacho. Maybe there was a little Garnacho and Kunku to Chelsea swap deal. There was a little smoke on Højlund maybe going to Italy. That's all died down. Goalkeeper, nothing. Striker, nothing. I would expect us, okay, Mbuemo is like taking a little longer. Let's kind of heat up these other areas of the squad, and we haven't seen that from United. So maybe we wouldn't be so focused on this transfer if there was something else developing, but United got pretty, like, where is the next deal after Mbuemo? Like, who else are we? It has to be striker, right? Or goalie. I think both equally high on the priority list for me.
No, I mean, those are the two priorities. We have, we'll talk about the Paraguayan youngster fullback joining the club this summer. We'll see if he features. He should feature this summer in terms of the tour. Whether he joins the first team next year or goes on loan, we will see. But you're right. The priorities after Bryan is brought in has got to be either number 9 or goalkeeper. And we're hearing just like, I wouldn't even call it smoke. Maybe flint. They're trying to get sparks going, but there's no fire, no kindling, no type of accumulation of smoke that's going to get people excited about the next transfer coming in. So I think largely it's because we're so dependent on sales, and I don't think those sales are happening. They're all kind of covered in hair.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying it's going to drag
straight out
on
of luck.
No, it's going to drag on late, and I think INEOS is going to come to a point in the window where they're going to have to cut their losses. And I think they're going to still be like, hey, we want 45 for Rashford plus you covering his wages. And at a certain point, they're going to have to realize that maybe they take half of that in order to get him out. Because at the end of the day, you just need to get these players out. You need a clean slate. You don't want any of them coming on the tour. And I don't think they're ready to take it on the chin quite yet.
All right, let's jump into our United in the News recap proper. That's right. We're breaking down all the latest Manchester United transfer news. Also answering a bit of fan questions later in the podcast. And, sir, we're talking about it. Bryan Mbeumo. We've researched how to pronounce his name. That is basically out of his mouth, like, how he says it. Mbuemo. I've been going with Mbuemo. He's getting closer to signing, so we got to get the pronunciation down. Bryan Mbeumo. Correct me if I get it wrong, sir, because it's going to take a little while. But per the BBC, Brentford reject Manchester United's new £62.5 million bid. This came across the wire 2 days ago. And prior to that, we basically made a bid of $45 million that was rejected on June 5th. So what are we doing for almost 25 days, upping the bid $10 million? The difference in the bid really comes down to the add-ons. The 45 was plus 10. The 55 is plus 7.5. We're creeping up on valuation. The rumor is Brentford wants 62.5, or they value Mbuemo more than Cunha. They believe from an attacking output perspective that we should be paying more, a premium for Mbuemo, and United being coy, saying, hey, we might get you there with the add-ons, but up front, we're going to hold the line at 55. That obviously rejected. So, sir, is there hope to get this done anytime soon?
I mean, at this point, if United didn't get the deal over the line, it'd be pretty embarrassing just because you went in with 2 offers, you burnt a month of time, and then to have him, stay at Brentford, sign another deal, go to Spurs, that would be even worse. I think we're going to get there. It's about the add-ons. Like you said, it's at $55 million right now as kind of the flat set and fee. Do they get it up to 60 plus 5 or plus 7.5, or do they need everything guaranteed up to 62.5, and it's just a little add-on from there, and then it's the installment breakdown. But he's a great player. He's the type of player we want to get in. But at this point, you're paying market. You're paying arguably, slightly above market. But this was the
fair.
Number. It's
fair.
He's
fair
worth
market.
it.
It's
He's
fair
hitting
market.
Dude, he's hitting for a Brentford player to score 20 goals. I know there's a bunch of penalties in there. He adds a tremendous attacking threat for United, a goal scorer as well. Him with Cunha would be terrific. Playing behind whoever, playing in front of Bruno Fernandes. That is just exciting to see. But at this point, it's like you would have hoped we can get this deal done in a matter of days to a week, given that the fact that we're basically hitting their price. I think they wanted £65 million, somewhere between 60 and 70 a month ago. And now here we are, a month later, getting pretty close to that. So if the deal gets over the line, it'll be right in the bandwagon, right in the wheelhouse or the ballpark of what Brentford expected. I don't understand why we wasted a month getting there. Maybe it's because they know we can't do any selling, maybe until the new PSR window opens up, or maybe they can't do any buy-in until we get rid of some of our dead wood.
Other clubs have come sniffing around this transaction, and Mbuemo only wants United. Apparently, the personal terms are agreed with Manchester United. It's rumored around $200K a week, but there's no concrete sources there. It's coming out of the rags, as we like to say, 250, 200. I've even heard less than that. So no concrete source on the wages, just the upfront offers. Now, as far as the transaction, given it was rejected, is there hope? So we're going to go to Mike Keegan at the Daily Mail. He says, quote, Mbuemo has told Brentford he wants to move to Manchester United and a breakthrough is expected. According to those with knowledge of the situation, there is a belief the deal will be done. So from the Daily Mail, take with a grain of salt, but they are saying Brentford value him a little higher than Cunha, as well as the fact that there's belief that they can get a deal done. It's just going to come down over the finer bits of haggling in the transaction. And we wanted to take a little deep dive into whether or not Brentford is making sense, saying, is Mbuemo worth more than Matheus Cunha? Like I said, Cunha's buyout clause was £62.5 million, and obviously Brentford want the £62.5 million up front, maybe some add-ons on top of that, and United are at 55 plus 7.5. It's not too far off, but looking into the stats, yes, Mbuemo did score more goals than Cunha. He had 20 and 8 assists in the league. Cunha had 15 and 6, but Mbuemo took 5 penalties. So 5 penalty goals, you take those away, they're basically even. And then looking at the advanced stats, Cunha outdoes Mbuemo in every single metric as it relates to non-penalty XG, XG plus X assist, and that takes account per 90 and there's no penalties included, right? So if you normalize it for the penalties that Mbuemo took, Cunha actually outpaces him in progressive carries and dribbles. If you look at the advanced stats map here, Cunha is a superior player. So this is just what we like to call some haggling, right? Brentford's hanging on to those 20 goals, 20 EPL goals, and then United's saying, hey, there's penalties in there. Cunha probably outperforms them. So they're haggling over that last, hopefully, £5 million, whether it's up front or in add-ons. We're pretty close.
We're getting there. Either way, I mean, they have an argument to be made, right? They have 20 goals in the EPL, even with penalties, is quite an achievement for any player. I think there's only 3 players above them, and their names are what? Salah, Holland, and I think Isaac from Newcastle. So he's quite a player. And at the same time, you could make the argument, and it makes sense to me that Cunha is probably slightly ahead of him because Wolves were an inferior team for most of the season against Brentford. Brentford's always been a steady Eddie team. They've been very, very solid under Thomas Frank. Obviously, Thomas Frank is going to Spurs this summer. So I think the fact that Cunha was right on his heels, if you remove penalties while playing for a team that was fighting relegation for the first 4 months of the year, he's a real player, but they both are. They both offer a lot. They play on the opposite sides of the pitch. They complement each other. They're really good ball carriers. So I get it. I get the justification. Let's just get there and stop wasting time because the players are expected back to Carrington in like a little bit over a week. It's very important to get as many of these players in, and he's one of them. He's a big personality, and we got to get the attack jiving because that was the biggest issue. We had a lot of issues last year, but goal scoring and giving them reps to play together, even with a Højlund up front, even with a Cheeto or a Xerxes, just like, this is who we got. Let's get them in and let's start getting to work. And that's why you can understand their argument. Also, they're probably a little worried about next season. They just lost their coach. They just lost their captain to Arsenal, and now their best player. So they're probably trying to get as much cash as they can in because they're going to have to reinforce in a serious way. Not in a dissimilar way that Wolves. Like, Wolves are going to be in trouble. They lost 2 of their best players as well. So just pay up. Just pay up. We're close. Just stop wasting time.
Yeah, look, I think the outcome here ultimately is United stepping up a little bit on the guaranteed money, right? They have 55. They could get the 58 or 60 plus the 7.5. Does that get Brentford comfortable, given with add-ons they could go north of the Cunha valuation? I would expect United to maybe budge a little bit in that direction and hopefully get the announcement in early July, right before preseason. That would be ideal. I think United will have to come up. I do think it's a fair valuation. The optics of United just dragging this out and continually upping their bids while Brentford rebuffs us isn't a good look. I'd rather have it just kind of dealt with behind the scenes, and then we offer something we know will be accepted. That would just be better optically for the front office of United. That's not the way they're rolling. But, sir, what do you think? Is Mbuemo going to be on the preseason tour for Manchester United? We think medical, deal done. Is he wearing red in the great US of A?
I hope so. I mean, I think it happens. I think, like you said, if this deal falls apart now at the 11th hour, it's deeply embarrassing to Manchester United.
Hope so. Yes. No.
I'm saying
maybe
yeah.
so.
Muppet yes. It's a Muppet yes. I'm taking the yes because It's been dragging on. He only wants United. We've clearly shown the interest. It's like, what, matter of £7.5 million in terms of guarantees versus not guarantees. Just get there. You got to be there. Need him in red. Need the beard.
It's going to
Shaved
happen.
head.
It's a matter of when. I'm going to go, yes, he's on preseason tour as well. And then we're going to consult the Magic 8 Ball here.
What's it got to say?
Shaking it up. It says, yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Mbuemo
Fuck
coming
yeah, let's
preseason
go,
tour.
baby.
USA, baby. Everybody get the Mbuemo kits ready to go. Sir, moving on to our next topic. We're going to be covering the PSR for Manchester United and the impact in the transfer window that could ultimately explain maybe why we don't want a deal until after July 2nd. You want to give us a high level of the PSR, and we'll kind of jump into where United are and how the accounting tricks could delay some deals into the next fiscal year.
Yes, so PSR is evaluated on a 3-month rolling basis. You cannot have any more than
3 years.
3-year running basis rolling in terms of the last 3 years. So I think the maximum loss you could have is £105 million. United found themselves right under that in the most recent fiscal year that's ending now at the end of June, so a couple of days from now. And we just squeaked under it. There were some kind of like offsets they could make around COVID. There were some offsets around youth and around infrastructure, all of which that they were able to finagle in a way that kept us compliant. So one of the arguments to be said about why are we not dishing any of the dead wood yet, nothing's happened in June, is because, hey, we have a clean cycle right now for this fiscal year. The new fiscal year is going to start in a couple days. If we get those sales, especially if they're youths like Garnacho or Rashford, you get an extra PSR boost headed into this summer transfer window for the lion's share of it, right? The 2/3 that are left in July and August. And that could give you some real muscle to spend money over the next couple months. So that's maybe the numpty accounting take that, like, hey, there's a reason that they're waiting so long to ship these fucking players. But I hope that is the truth. It would make sense. You know, they don't want to, like, basically get a big gain right before they're already compliant, and then you can't carry that forward the same way you would if it was done 3 days later or 5 days later. So it makes sense to me, but it's all going to come out in the wash in the next 2 weeks, because if they're not getting deals done, then it didn't matter. They were just kicking tires and basically unable to sell Marcus Rashford to Barcelona, who want a great deal, and they will likely get a great deal. What are your thoughts, sir? You think PSR is having a play in terms of why United have acted the way they've acted thus far this transfer window?
I don't think so. I think you can structure deals to get around it. But I think the overarching theme, maybe yes. The article we're breaking down from The Athletic talking about every single club's PSR situation is pretty interesting. United was not in the red category where PSR was actually going to be a problem. They have a graphic here where they break it down, where Manchester United's allowed losses in 24-25 were actually £141 million. It's estimated that our losses are actually going to come in around 100 million. But if you think about maybe Cunha, it's on the credit card. How many 5 years? So 60 divided by 5, you add that to the 100 million, not going to impact it. The Mbuemo deal, we do not know anything about it. So maybe we're waiting on that one until July. Maybe we're comfortable with dragging that bidding process out. I still believe with the lawyers and accountants United have, we could structure it in a way where we could agree in principle and then complete the transaction after. But as far as the sales, I think you're spot on. I think we're not rushing to get anyone out the door because we want that credit for the next year. And doing that deal and structuring it would be more difficult. Look, Newcastle and Chelsea did the same thing last year. They pushed all their purchases past July 1. Yep. Chelsea did a bunch of trickery by selling the women's club to itself and all this stuff. And all that's being outlawed as we speak. But for United right now, 24-25, we're looking good for PSR. And if we can sell a lot of these youth players, like you mentioned, after July 2nd, which is the weekend. It does end June 30th, but because of the weekend, it goes to July 2nd. If we can get anybody out the door July 2nd, we will have a huge benefit to our PSR. And you might see United get a little more frisky towards the end of the window once they have an idea of what values are going to be hit, who they're actually going to sell. I feel like right now, the Mbuemo deal is like creeping up. And then we don't know. There's not a good signs on anybody that we're selling. And so we're maybe a little nervous as far as where the budget's going to come out. But I think PSR is impacting United, unfortunately. And hopefully it won't in the future. Another note would be the Red Football Limited. So you can't look at the public financials. You have to look at Red Football Limited. And all this detail is it's not public information as far as where they're coming out exactly. So there's nothing beyond these estimates that we could get from The Athletic.
And there's two ways to look at this. There's like the fact that they don't want to get a boost for PSR perspectives or a boost in terms of like profitability for the most previous, the fiscal year that's about to end. At the same time, they might be anticipating losses that they don't want to have hit in the rolling 3-year basis, right? Because we're probably going to on paper, on a PSR perspective, lose money on Sancho, given what rumors, they're loose rumors, but like that's going to be a
we're losing
PSR
money on
loss.
Sancho, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to lose money on that from a PSR perspective, so that will affect this little cushion you got there. Marcus Rashford's not the same because he's homegrown, but same with Anthony. You're going to take a loss on that deal. If we're to do Højlund, if you're doing Onana, you might take a loss. So it's like, we'll see, but I also agree with your perspective. Like, there's a lot of way to structure this shit. Look what Chelsea does. They do all kinds of shady stuff. Yes. Amortization over 7-8 years, even though they said a max of 5, and somehow they finagled around that. So this could be a good excuse. This could also be justification if stuff starts happening in between July 1 and the lads back at Carrington / when they start going tour in Europe, and eventually in the States. So I don't envy the front office. I mean, they got a shit ton of work to do. 1/3 of the transfer window is now basically finished, and we got a lot of work to do. So PSR, we're safe for now, but like you said, purchases, they're going to be made on the credit card because that's all we got.
Come on, United, let's get active in July. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Next topic here, we're going to do a deep dive into strikers as far as other clubs are concerned. Gyorkeres, the saga that is turning into a saga for multiple clubs, plus his own saga with Sporting Lisbon, which has turned out to be decently hysterical. But as far as Gyorkeres goes, there were rumors that he didn't want United. Then Romano basically said that's not true. Obviously, the agent's keeping all options open. He wants Arsenal, apparently, or he just wants a big club with Champions League football to sign him, but Arsenal wants Šeško, which we're going to detail here from Fabrizio Romano. But how does this impact United? Depending who Arsenal sign, that player will then be available for Manchester United to go after. Obviously, Osimhen is a tangent to this. Arsenal's not interested in Osimhen. But between Šeško and Gyorkeres, the connection with Amram's interesting because if Arsenal goes Šeško, Gyorkeres did this big bust up with Sporting over his buyout clause or verbally agreed buyout clause. And if nobody buys him, and he doesn't want to play for Sporting, you have sort of the fallout issue that Manchester United has about 4 players doing right now, and you might be able to get him for cheap. Right. So we're sort of watching this Arsenal striker saga from the perspective of if Arsenal goes Šeško, then Gyorkeres doesn't have a home. He wants to move. Could United maybe pick up a more fair transaction from Sporting Lisbon?
No, it really depends on what's the first domino to fall because there are players or teams that, they're very much pursuing a striker. Obviously, we know about Arsenal. There's rumors that Chelsea want another one because they want to get rid of Jackson and have, a star in front of Delap. And a lot of the strikers, they favor Arsenal at the moment. They think they're one striker away from going on and winning the title next season. But at the same time, all this mess around Gyorkeres, he does feel like something that we could wait late into the window, get an opportunistic deal, even at 60 million pounds, given his productivity over the last couple seasons in Portugal. That would be a good deal for Manchester United. My concern is it feels like another fucking drama queen. It's like another player that has drama with their former club. We've heard about things going on in terms of messaging with his agent, and it just feels like we've had enough of those players. Where, like you said, we're on the way to moving out 4 in one go. I'm pushing him off the cliff. That's my concern around him. Everything I've heard about Osimhen is he wants to get paid, but he seems like a low drama player. Šeško, I don't know enough about, but there's been a lot of noise around Gyorkeres that he's making himself, and that's just we've seen that before, bro. Paul Pogba, Jadon Sancho, you have a player with a lot of noise around him.
He has the Amram connect.
He does.
Let's remember
but
that.
Amram could be gone in a year.
Push back. I'm just pushing back where they did. It seems like Sporting is the party to blame, where they said we'll sell you, and he had an amazing season, and then they're just like, oh, just kidding, we want more money. Just kidding, that was a handshake deal. You need to sign. Sorry, yeah. But look, let's get into Šeško here. Romano early June said Arsenal are advancing negotiations with Šeško, and it's kind of died down. So I figured Arsenal was Šeško, and then Gyorkeres, most likely United or some other club. It died down. Then Gyorkeres is really kicking up dust, like you mentioned, about going to Arsenal. And now on social media news, Romano tweeted out today, Šeško just started following Arsenal. So the fact that we're maybe hearing more from Gyorkeres lately, the fact that Šeško is now following Arsenal, which is pretty cheeky if you consider he already has a club. Romano's tweeting it out, gaslighting the fans.
Classic.
Arsenal, it does feel Šeško was the main man from the jump, and Gyorkeres is that number 2, who's like, hey, come and get me. I want Arsenal, etc., and nobody's coming. And if this continues, Gyorkeres to United, like you said, it could give us some leverage. He has gotten an extended leave from Sporting Lisbon through July 7th, thinking that maybe, hey, you want a deal, go get a deal. If nobody comes to get you, ultimately you have to come back. And Sporting's president did an interview in Portugal and said the player knows, the agent knows, and I can guarantee with absolute certainty that Viktor will not leave for 60 million plus 10 million euros in add-ons. So that means he's setting the floor of the valuation, looking for maybe 60 million, 70 million pounds. We're doing deals in that range currently for Cunha and Mbuemo. Gyorkeres, could we afford him post-July 2nd? Maybe. Would need to be structured. And the stars would have to align. Like, basically, no one else wants him. And then he'll come to United because the Amram links, and maybe we can afford him in some overly structured deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're still Manchester United. He obviously has a great relationship with our current manager. My concern is, things can change very quickly for this manager, given how last season went. We're all rooting for him. Who would be your preference, sir? Like, if you could pick anyone of the two Viktors and Šeško, would you have a preference? I like Gyorkeres, but my concern is the Portuguese league, and he is up there in age. But what are you thinking? Is he the top of your list if you can get any of the three?
Osimhen 1, Šeško 2, Gyorkeres 3.
There you go. That's
for the reasons you said, where I think Osimhen you could get for a cheaper deal up front, maybe give him the wages. Just feels like a United player to me. Šeško, not EPL proven. Great talent. Saw him in the Euros. He's phenomenal. Younger. So I would put Gyorkeres last. But at the end of the day, if United don't sign a striker, we cannot run it back with Højlund. We're going to be pretty desperate at the end of the window. And if he doesn't have a team, I could see the stars aligning. This is where a bunch of things have to happen, and then we can maybe get Gyorkeres. And I wouldn't complain if at the end of the window we had a new goalie, we had Gyorkeres, and we basically ran it back with Cunha and Mbuemo. I would be fine with that. Like, I would be fine with United taking that approach, 4 players in. I mean, right now, like, what realistically can we expect? We're not linked to anybody, not hearing about any deals. Preseason's about to start, so I'm going to say if we got Gyorkeres in, that would be a huge win for United. But if I could pick anyone, I'd probably go Osimhen.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think, but at the end of the day, it could be one of those windows where it's quality over quantity. We could easily say you need 7-8 players, but we're going for high quality signings, right? The first 2 that we're looking to get in, the EPL proven, like you said, some of the best attackers outside the big top 6 teams. If you were to just get a starting goalkeeper who's not Andre Onana and a starting striker who's not Premier League proven, but you're like at least proven in a top 5 league, and I don't even think Portugal is a top 5 league, but he has done it in the Champions League. That would be such an upgrade for United that you'd be willing to run it back with Casemiro and Ugarte. You'd be wanting to run it back with our fullback options, even with a youngster that we're about to talk about in a second coming back. So going for quality, getting the goals, and also getting the someone to iron things out a little bit and steady the state in the goalkeeping position. Because if you run back Andre Onana, that is going to be frightening. Absolutely
frightening. But let us know what you think about Viktor Gyorkeres coming to Manchester United. Next topic, sir. Let us know. Diego León set to travel to England from Romano, starting his new chapter as a Manchester United player. Really excited about this young Paraguayan international. But, he's not going to be at the level. He's going to be coming in probably more on the youth side of things. But I love signing young talent. We saw youngsters come into United like Cheeto make big differences for United.
No, and I think this is the area, you can make a lot of comments about have they been doing it right or wrong from a recruitment perspective for INEOS, but I do like the young, cheaper signings. Aiden Heaven, you can't argue that is going to be a really great one for the future. Same with Cheeto Obi, Sekou Kone, and Diego León. He fits the bill as well. He looks like a little unit. I mean, he's not big, but he looks like he's built, and that's what you need to compete at the top level. He's also been playing, I know it's a very much, 3rd or 4th tier league, but he's playing with grown men in Paraguay, fighting it out. So I'm excited to see what he can make of it on summer tour. This is why it's so important to, in the next story, we'll talk about a certain Dutch fullback. He should be, the priority, not a player that like we are trying to foist. A player that, hey, does he have what it takes to kind of, take a Massa spot maybe, and then a Moss goes out on loan. So it'll be very interesting to watch. It's exciting. It's exciting formula. It's one for the long term. I just hope INEOS buys themselves enough time to play out the long term, because it feels like Sir Jim is running out of time. But I'm excited about Diego León. What can he show? What can he show on a hot day in Chicago? Because that's where they're going to be playing that summer tour, sir. Soon enough. Only a couple of weeks away.
Yeah, but once again, this is where the director of football argument comes into play. We have Luke Shaw, we have Dorgu, we have Amos, we have Malacia, now we have León. They arguably all play the same position. You could say Luke Shaw, center back, left side center back. But even though that distribution of talent is all young, it's all young. You need a seasoned vet who's starting. Then you need a promising youngster behind him. And then you could have a Harry Amos character in the academy. You can't have Dogu, León, Amos, Malacia. It's the same profile, all four. And they're all going to flounder. They're all going to hurt each other's careers. Amos is either going to get cooked by León, right? Malacia is already surplus requirements. And is Dogu the guy to take us forward? Dogu probably needs to learn under somebody who's world-class, could be starting that position right now. I feel like United of old always had these veterans that were starting, these youngsters right behind them. Where's the Patrice the Beast ever on the left-hand side who owns it? And then Dogu can learn from him. I feel like without that, they're sort of drowning out there a little bit and then just fighting for these positions. But just a weird one with left wing back now under Ruben Amorim's system. It's almost like we have too many players and not the guy, and we just need the guy ultimately at United.
And the squad is a bit of a hodgepodge mess at the moment, like you're alluding to. Totally. I mean, in ideal state, Luke Shaw is that guy. He's not fit enough to be
100%.
a wing back, and hasn't stayed fit enough over the last fucking 5 years to be a dependable person. Dogu should be right behind him, full of talent, but not the finished article. Needs probably years. And then you have an Amos that is fighting through. Maybe he goes on loan. Fucking Malacia, he's surplus requirements. You just got to foist him at this point. But it'd be very interesting to see. I mean, like, that's where, you know, the loan watch for the remainder of the season, how that plays out. I mean, it'll be dependent on, can we get rid of Malacia in the first place? Is another loan for him. But damn, bro, INEOS got a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do.
Well, let's talk about Tyrell Malacia coming back. This is from Romano today. PSV Eindhoven did not trigger the buy option for Tyrell Malacia. Left back returns to Manchester United. Like we said, too many left backs now, too many young left backs. I didn't really rate him. Another disaster of a signing from Ten Hag, although he was cheap. I did feel that, again, too many Dutch players, too many Dutch prospects didn't come good. Hate to see this with another young player at United, and then you put him in the lineup. You're kind of foisting him on another team or paying his wages to go somewhere else. It's just going to be one of those things that we saw with maybe this is the Bluffin' 5 now instead of the Bluffin' 4.
I hope not. We don't need any more work to do. You just thought with Eindhoven winning the league, him playing, you know, the buyout option was,
you know,
bit part, of course, but like it's the Dutch league, you know, and it's not very much money. But this is one of those players that you have to just get off the books. You know, sell for $2 million, $3 million, whatever. He's not on huge wages. We'll look at those in a second, sir. But it's a distraction. It's a complication. And it's just more things for the front office that's kind of understaffed. You know, Jason Wilcox doing 2 fucking jobs, technical director, director of football. It's a lot to do, and we've got a lot to do. So this is why, like, if we keep the state of play in terms of pace for June across the next 2 months of the window, we are fucked. So they got to step it up, and they got to start making deals. And one of them is like just shipping players. Like, who wants them? Who you want? Who in the Dutch league wants Tyrell Malacia? You know, wish it worked out differently, but that's football, right? He had a 13-month injury
that's just
too.
Ten Hag signings. You know, at the end of the day, 8 appearances for the youngster at PSV. He's back at Carrington. 1 year proper left on his contract. We have an option.
We're not taking an option
in 2027. But yeah, we got 1 more year. He doesn't have a lot of wages here. So like people, I think optically this might be more frustrating than what the bottom line is in INEOS right now. I'm probably more concerned with the bottom line than they are just worried about Malacia coming back. They'll probably look for a loan to somewhere, but at the end of the day, $3.9 million in wages on the books is not going to break the banks as far as like Rashford and Sancho are concerned. Those are the real problems. Yeah, this one to the giant pile of shit that Manchester United have to shovel this summer, and they're going to get to it eventually, but right now, not a priority, but just not good optics for the whole operation at Manchester United. Jumping into some fan questions, sir. Let us know on Twitter. We tweeted out before we do the podcast. Got any questions for us? Hit us up on Twitter, or X as the kids call it these days. At D_Cole18. My team won the NBA championship and is set up to compete for years because our owners and GM built youth and defense. Then I look at United, which is a different sport, but the same concept should be successful. My God, what a joke this team has become. I don't think I've ever been less excited for a season. Wow. Rock bottom here. from D_Cole. How are you feeling? Are you never been less excited for a season?
I'm excited because I want to wipe that nasty taste of last 2 seasons out of my mouth. And I'm just thinking, I'm hopeful that things will get better. I don't think they're going to be great. We're not going to be winning no championships, but I want to see some of these new dogs coming in. I'm excited about Cunha and Mbuemo. I think those are really, really interesting players. The selling, I think
it's not enough red meat. It's not even enough red meat.
But I'm just trying to be. Hold on.
I'm just saying.
I'm not saying it is. We have so much.
Fans are speaking here.
Thing is, there are many things that INEOS are doing right, but they're also running out of time, right? It's like the Aiden Heavens, Cheeto Obi, Seko Kone, León. Those are the right type of transfers to do for the long term. Those are the players that will pay dividends in the future. It's just that I think Sir Jim is running out of time.
That's a side dish. That's a side dish.
No, but that's how you build a team for the future. Is you sign like the best players in their position who's 18, 19, and then by the time they're 22, they're a worldie.
In 7, I mean...
That's a long con, but we don't have time for that. It's like Sir Jim's going to run. He's probably going to lose operating control within the next 12 months, 18 months, depending on how the club does. So we've been put into a hole for 2 decades of mismanagement. INEOS came in. They made lots of blunders themselves. And I think at the end of the day, like, who's going to come home when the chickens come to the roost? Because who's going to be held left in the bag? I think United could be in a sale position once again in the next 2 years where we're selling to a sovereign because they're out of money and they're just putting stuff on their credit card. And we owe $1 billion. Who's buying this club?
Well, we should see soon whether or not the turnover... You know, I really think the commercial deals need to be made.
They haven't.
I thought INEOS was going to come in, sponsor the stadium, and then they're, hey, this is where we get the money to kind of rebuild. Need to see more movement on the top line revenue side. They've definitely been cost cutting. So we should be reaping the benefits of a lot of those tough decisions they made this past season. Maybe they went too far with like taking 40 grand from the old retired legends. From an optics perspective, it didn't look great. But I'm decently excited for this season. I think last season was I was much less excited. I didn't really get the signings, bringing Ten Hag back and then giving him all that money. I was just very concerned. I was like, if we don't get top 4, this could blow up in our face. And so I was more wary about last year. This year, Abram's going to get a full preseason, and he's a dog. So he's going to get something out of this team. I did feel my major worry, like thinking about last summer, my major worry with Ruben Amorim is he basically kind of punted on the entire season. Basically, these players, like similar to Ten Hag, like, hey, these players can't play this way. And then INEOS is not going to give him any players. Like, I knew that was going to happen. For some reason, Amorim didn't know that was going to happen. And clearly they haven't given him enough. And so this could be like the Iberian Jose Mourinho, well, the board didn't back me, and start making excuses. I'd like to see Amorim just be like, hey, we got to be better and be more pragmatic as it relates to getting results. It's not going to be a glorious season, but I want to see better football from him. I want to see something from Manchester United, because the 38% win rate is not cutting it. And I get why fans are not that excited about this season. And I will also caveat, you don't judge a transfer window until it is over. And so we are pretty much at the end of our rope. We need bodies in. We are not selling, and I get it. But when the transfer window is over, we have to judge it in totality. And right now we're probably not giving it a high grade, but they could pull something out. We shall see. Hopefully that July 2nd deadline is important. At Sabres Car Guy 9, will anyone be sold? Seems like the same old story.
I think there'll be a couple of sales. I think they're ready to take a loss in a big way on Anthony. I think we'll figure out some kind of funky deal with Batiste, where we get some really huge proponent of his sell-on clause. It'll be shit, low money. They seem to have just sold a player to Atletico, so I think they'll have a little cash to spend on Anthony. I think we'll sell Sancho in a really cut rate deal where we basically we'll make no money, because they'll give us basically his wages, and that's it, and we'll foist him to somebody in Italy. I do not think we'll be able to sell Marcus Rashford. He'll probably be another loan. I think we'll be able to sell Malacia for peanuts to somebody in the Dutch league.
You're saying sell. I don't think we're selling. I think we're loaning. The only player I think we can sell is Garnacho. The only player I think we'll realistically sell is Garnacho, and it'll be something like, we'll be lucky if we get 40.
But that'd be crazy to sell him for 40, in my mind. Like, you just keep him.
The pressure increases if they can't sell Rashford. Like, Rashford, most likely, because of the wage component, I think the wage component of Sancho and Rashford make them completely different deals.
Yeah.
Where ultimately the better deal could be loaning and paying his wages because of the wage buy down. Also, Anthony delaying a loss on selling him could be the solution from a PSR perspective. Now we're getting into accounting technicalities. And Garnacho, if you only sell Garnacho, you book the 40 million gain. and then you kind of like reduce the wages as much as possible on all the other three, that could be, to me, that is the most likely outcome. Like, that is really it.
Another loan for Rashford, another loan for Sancho, basically covering.
And another loan for Antony because of the PSR implications. And then you get the Garnacho bump. And then, because we're so close to the line here,
we are,
that we're really managing the accounting side and nobody's offering anything for these players. So what realistically, Rashford wants to go to Barcelona on a loan. Barcelona don't even want to buy him. He's going to collude with Barcelona to get some sort of crazy deal, and United got nothing and no leverage, and nobody wants him. Villa doesn't want him. Like, at the end of the day, like,
he doesn't want Villa.
It's looking rough out there on the sales side, and it's always been like that at Manchester United, right? They sold us some false hope with the Sancho sale to Chelsea, and that just blew up in our face. So we're just, and this is where people want to think about director of football, like Dan Ashworth. It's about buying and selling talent, and it's like he is world class at doing it. And now we got Wilcox in there. I don't know. It's just one of those things where, like, why did we get rid of Ashworth? And it's because he didn't get along at tea time with Sir Jim. Like, that kills me.
Sir Jim, man, he's a hardo, and he doesn't seem to like anybody unless they kiss his ass. And I'm sure that was some of the fallout, or do things that he thinks are unpopular. But I have to agree. They put a lot of onus on themselves. The last window, they came in late. They're backing a manager that they didn't even know they wanted to back until halfway through the fucking window. That was crazy. And now here they are. They fired the director of football right in the winter last year in December. I don't know why they didn't let him play out the rest of the year, because that was a PR disaster as well, just giving yourself one man light when you have so much work to do. You're also giving jobs to the boys. We're giving jobs to the boys once again.
I get it, but the worst part about this is, like, every year as the season's winding down, it's like, United to get rid of 10 players. And every year I'm like, no, we're not. Like, no, we're not. Last one here at Toro da Corsa. How worried are you that we'll end up with the wrong Viktor? I assume he's like Viktor Gyorkeres or Viktor Osimhen, sir. How worried?
As long as we don't end up with Victor Lindelof, I'll be happy. It's like, as long as we don't have, like, run back the Iceman, which is the most preposterous fucking nickname of all time.
Hey, he showed up last year in some games, played decently well. I definitely a
dance.
dud.
Go back and dance, bro.
Definitely a dud. Definitely didn't rate him.
Shouldn't have got a new contract. He's a player that should have left.
For him to go out was actually like he came in and played decently well in some key moments last year to get us to a final where we just got absolutely just like to the sword by horrid Tottenham side. But look, sir, that is it. That is the podcast. We are the American Red Devils. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're listening on iTunes and Spotify. Get over to YouTube, subscribe, like, and comment below on the video. Let us know what you think, or if you agree with any of these hot takes. United need to do some deals, and we need some news to come through soon. We also have a end of season survey. Go on our Twitter profile. It's pinned. We want your feedback. We want to improve the podcast. We're doing lots of different things to get it improved. We iterate every year, and it's for fans, by fans. So give us your feedback. You can check out the Google survey link on our Twitter. And also we have our newsletter. Please sign up for it. We're sending it every week. Top United headlines. You want to be informed. Stay in the know. Sign up for our American Red Devils newsletter. It's linked in the description below. It's on our Twitter profile. Please check it out, sign up, and be a top Muppet. Sir, give us our top 10 downloads last 7 days.
Number one, how you doing? Chicago, Illinois, Oslo, Norway, Los Angeles, California, Dublin, Ireland, Portland, Oregon, Melbourne, Australia, New York, Brooklyn, New York. And I think that's about it for the we got Charlotte, North Carolina. We got Atlanta, Georgia. Appreciate all the American Devils listening week in, week out. We appreciate you backing us. It's been a hell of a time being a Manchester United fan over the last decade plus. Hang in there. So we got to be excited about next season. We got to be excited about United turning things around, but it starts with the summer transfer window. INEOS, get to work. 2 months left. Get some deals in, get some players out, and let's give Reds a reason to be hopeful for next year.